Welcome back to the last part of my talk on the link between description, typology, and natural language processing. I want to talk a little bit about the future plans that I have for what I've presented on, and hopefully some interesting ongoing issues. So I have myself personally moved away somewhat from natural language processing implementations, although I would like to return to some of these issues. The reason for this is I am part of an extremely large typological and areal project at the University of Zurich, and I just don't have the time to pursue some of these things. I am still involved with Nuuchahnulth documentation efforts, although in a somewhat more reduced role recently, but this is a project that many people are involved in, and a lot of the Nuuchahnulth community is involved in documenting their language. With an eye to NLP specifically, there is a lot of typological literature coming out as more and more things become digitized and accessible to researchers. Typological work has had a larger amount of data to draw on, and the most vibrant questions right now have to do with what is common in the world and where it is. And here I would just say stay tuned for the results from the Out of Asia project at the University of Zurich. Our main results will probably be published in about 2 years. And following up on what I've talked about with respect to Nuuchahnulth, there is a particular problem in the syntax, which is not rare, but it is extreme in Nuuchahnulth's family, which is the South Wakashan branch of Wakashan. The source of most problems for my grammar in parsing Nuuchahnulth was second position elements. This is not the only source of that low coverage, but it was a very significant source of that low coverage you saw in earlier slides. What is second position? These are elements that syntactically must be the second thing in the sentence. And languages differ by how loose that word thing is. Do they have to be the second word? Do they have to be the second constituent? Is that constituent constrained in some way? Different languages have different rules on this. As I mentioned, second position syntax is not itself very rare, but it does have a common flavor and a rare flavor. But don't let the term rare confuse you there in rare flavor. I mean rare if every language gets a vote. The grammatical elements in second position are common. This can be seen in South Slavic with subject agreement, in Australian Aboriginal languages with subject agreement and tense aspect and mood. And the same goes for the Pacific Northwest, tense aspect, mood, and subject agreement. And then there's the rare flavor, which is a full inflected verb in second position. And I said don't be confused by rare because German is in that category. As is a language called English, which is spoken in the Caucasus, and again, Nuuchahnulth. So German has one second position slot per clause, and this is a position slot for finite verbs. If you look at the difference between sentence 18 and 19, several of the words move around, but the finite verb kann, which is first person singular can, stays put. Ich kann dich jetzt verstehen. I can understand you now. Jetzt kann ich dich verstehen. Now I can understand you. Can move things around, but second position must be maintained. Nuuchahnulth has two second positions, one at the clause level, which is where inflectional clitics go, and one at the level of the verb phrase, which is where transitive verbs go. So in sentence 20, you have, we are going to drive home. This wird das nicht, going to first person plural, is in causal second position. If an adverb were to occur before this, then these clitics would move to the adverb. And in sentence 21, the verb have is in the second position of the verb phrase. This includes the object. So have one younger sibling, the linear order for that is one have younger sibling. So I have one younger sibling. These two second positions do not have to align. So this is most commonly seen with conjunctions and adverbs, where the clausal elements move to the conjunction or the adverb, and the VP element stays put. So you can see that in this sentence. And it was us, they never wanted to go fishing. So all of the tense aspect mood and the first person plural agreement goes with the coordinating conjunction and, but the second position inside the verb phrase, desire to do nothing, so desired us not to fish, stays put inside of the VP. It's possible, but a bit tricky to handle a single second position within a clause without generating parse ambiguity. But the real difficulty with this, from the perspective of an implemented grammar, has to do with grammatical information in second position. Because if you have grammatical information, especially if it's an auxiliary or something like that, you don't know what it semantically composes with. What it attaches to might be something like the coordinating conjunction and so you're putting past tense on something that you don't have yet. And so the way that these things work, this kind of explodes the parse space. There are solutions to this, however. But in Nuuchahnulth, the number and complexity of these second position elements gradually degraded my parse time and made my parse complexity worse and worse. And at some point, I'm working on coordination. It isn't the most important thing to do, so I stopped tinkering with this. One possible solution to this problem is something called edge inflection, which to my knowledge has been most developed by Bertolt Griesmann. So instead of parsing second position elements as they occur in the string, what this methodology does is basically holds them in memory until the edge of the phrase they attach to is found. And edge is sort of notional here. Second position can be an edge just as much as leftmost or rightmost. So you sort of keep them around in the parse space, but you don't do anything with them until you have found the end of the phrase they attach to, and then you go through and find the head where they are supposed to attach. There is some additional work that would be needs to happen in order to check this methodology against Nuuchahnulth and other languages, but I think it's very worth doing, and it might be a way around the computational complexity involved with parsing this. So, as an overall conclusion, I hope that I have at least convinced you a little bit that integrating NLP into language description work is fruitful, not just for documentation, but also for NLP. There are things that I discovered in documenting that I would not have seen if I had not been using NLP technologies. And I think I got a better impression of certain kinds of limitations from doing the documentation work. A model of compositional semantics is often necessary to fully understand syntactic structures. This has kind of been in the background, but you saw this with the notion of separable or sequential events versus simultaneous events, which showed up in serial verb constructions. I actually think that we are probably at the point where getting some of these more detailed compositional semantics will help with NLP parsing and sort of other processes. Computationally implementing grammatical analyses is useful for checking grammatical theories. As I indicated, there was the issue that I had where the linker had to be doubled simply because it could occur on the first or the second coordinate. To me, this seems like a problem with the theory. And a better understanding of typology can help NLP researchers be more general in their approach. For instance, the funny predicative qualities of nouns in Nuuchahnulth are maybe not so funny after all, and we might benefit from treating this together with the way that we treat languages like Russian and Arabic. And finally, I believe that communication between NLP and these more traditional linguistic domains actually enriches both fields. Um, so that concludes my talk. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I look forward to hearing questions and listening to others in this lecture series about typology in the domain of NLP. Thank you very much for your attention.